Morning, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm going to be briefly describing the way in which Kerala managed the revised National TB control program. A lot of this is going to be similar to what was done in rest of India because this is a national program that has a similar parameters across the country. But given the specifics of the health system in Kerala and the way the health system is located in the whole governance framework, there'll be some interesting difference that may be of interest to the people who are listening in. Now, the reimagining of the TB control program in Kerala happened due to changes in the design in the revised National Tuberculosis Control Program. In the past, TB was managed as a vertical program by specialist pulmonologists. Now, RTCP made a crucial difference by taking the program away from the specialist and entrusting it to the general health system. In fact, it was a shift of power from the pulmonologist to the public health specialist. While in the past, drugs were prescribed based on patient characteristics such as body weight, etc., RTCP came up with a standard drug regimen based on categories into which patients are divided and also the pediatric cases. All the persons in one category received the same medication. Now, this took away discretion from the clinicians on what to prescribe, thereby making it possible, thereby putting every clinician on equal plane. This certainly had its dangers. In fact, many persons attribute the steep rise in drug resistance to such an untitrated use of drugs. But it enabled TB treatment to be handled at the primary care centers and sub-centers. And this was a crucial change for Kerala. It brought in a paradigmic shift in TB management. Now, primary health care teams, while they were not familiar with tuberculosis, were familiar with patients, their families, and their social milieus. The multipurpose health workers, who are actually the frontline workers for this program, both male and female, had developed the experience of working closely with the community. Sorry. This enabled them to track persons on treatment to ensure treatment compliance, bring in some bit of a social pressure, and also to retrieve them on default while identifying more accurately the reasons for default. Now, the second benefit of this was the management close to the community had the impact of normalizing tuberculosis as community health workers, as part of their work, had an interest in ensuring that the persons assigned to them for follow-up did complete the treatment. The unintended consequence of this change was that it brought attention to something that was ignored in the past, that is the social circumstances of the patients. This is a very important determinant of the disease and also its treatment. In Kerala, in 1996, that is a year before RNTCP was started, all primary care institutions and even secondary care institutions had been transferred to the local governments. That is, the control of these, the administrative control of primary health centers, secondary hospitals were with the local governments. These governments, unlike in other places, had financial resources, which they had the freedom to invest in promoting health. And since health is a subject to a lot of political salience in the state, and since primary care teams work closely with the local governments because they are the advisors on health to the local government, they could advise them how to invest in health. Because of this, those when they were interested with tuberculosis, they could persuade them to invest in adding infrastructure, say for a microscopy center. Slowly, local governments are persuaded to support other aspects such as nutrition. In fact, a district panchayat did run a nutrition program as a pilot one, and then later it was extended to the entire state. Now, not only did the involvement of local politicians lead to mobilization of the resources that were available with them, but because politicians had this contact with the non-government resources, the community, They are able to mobilize the community to build houses, setting up local support groups, providing food, transport, etc. So so the shift to primary health system had the benefit of shifting the management to primary care doctors and multipurpose health workers, which had its own impact. And because this primary health system was aligned with the local government, it had the secondary benefit of shifting that to the to the panchayats and municipalities. In 2016, when the new government came to power, they announced a set of Kerala-specific sustainable development goals. And as you know, SDG 3.3 targets elimination of a set of diseases, including tuberculosis. Kerala announced the target of eliminating tuberculosis by 2025, which has now got slightly modified to 2030. This was meant to be done with the support of the local governments, and each local body was supposed to come up with a motto of my tuberculosis-free Gram Panchayat or my tuberculosis-free corporation. The advantage then is that the political mileage that a local government gets in supporting tuberculosis has the potential to contribute to tuberculosis and also to bring in other elements that can support this. Now, this is still in the nascent stage. Unfortunately, only the initial stages have happened, but it has the potential to emerge as a major strategy and an instrument for TB elimination in Kerala. Look at the other benefit. To a large extent, if we are able to work with local governments who in turn work with the civil society, to a large extent, tuberculosis is destigmatized, it is normalized, and the otherwise neglected social aspects of managing tuberculosis also come to form. So if you analyze the components that I've described above, the key ones that stand out are shifting responsibility of tuberculosis control to the primary care system, use of community health volunteers to better engage with TB patients and their families and to appreciate the social conditions and its link to TB and its treatment. The linkage that consequently got established between primary health centers and local governments, the availability of flexible funds with the local governments and their willingness to invest that to support tuberculosis patients, the wider social mobilization that happened when elected representatives are made to appreciate the situation of TB patients and how they can be helped, and the consequent reduction of stigma leading to greater willingness to access testing and to complete treatment. In addition to this, as part of the TB elimination campaign, Kerala also undertook a vulnerability assessment and focusing on people who are vulnerable to tuberculosis. Now, if this strategy, which I've just described above, is further extended, it can go upstream and look at those factors that contribute to the vulnerability to tuberculosis. Is it housing? Is it nutrition? Is it any other factor? And because of the flexible funds available with the local government can be used for any justifiable purpose, this can be used to reduce their vulnerability and address them before people get infected. And it can also go downstream. That is, people who are cured of TB have a lot of needs for rehabilitation, which are generally not addressed. Now, if that is also set up as an aim of this assistance, it also has a tremendous potential for making the life of TB survivors a lot easier. I hope my description of how the shift happened in Kerala has been of interest to you, and thank you for listening. Thank you.